Whenever you're analyzing data, a common thing you want to do is compare how a given data point, let's say a given day or month, compares with the previous period, and maybe compares with the same time a year prior. This is particularly important if you're looking at things like seasonality or looking for trends. Let's see how we can do this with Tableau and how we can do it much more easily with Zing Data. First, we're going to open up Tableau Public, and you'll see even though we're using a Mac from the last couple of years, it still takes a little bit of time to load. The data set we're going to be using as Tableau is loading is a set of information going back actually more than 10 years with median sale prices, number of listings, number of sales for homes in the Bay Area. So now we're going to read this Excel file into Tableau. We're going to have to set up a couple calculations to kind of help Tableau be able to do these time comparisons. Because ideally what we want to do is get sum of houses sold, and we want to see that over time. Let's say by month. However, we only want to go back, let's say, a 1 year period, and we want to compare that last 12 months with the previous 12 months. So we can see if there's differences or trends that we can spot. Unfortunately, Tableau doesn't have kind of a built-in way to let us natively compare this. So we're going to have to come up with some helper calculations and functions. To do that, we go to this Analysis tab, and then we click Create Calculated Field. We're going to have to create two calculations. The first is going to tell us if a given date is within the current period or the previous period. So I'll say current or previous period flag. And this is going to have to be conditional logic. So if the date, and we'll use the date addition function, using month as the time interval. If the date from today is within the last 12 months, then, and the variable we're using is month of period end, then we are going to say current period. So this is checking if 12 months ago from today, the period we're looking at is within that range. Else, if, we're going to want to look at the previous comparison. So if we are looking at the rolling last 12 months and we want to compare the previous period to that, that's actually the previous kind of 13 through 24 months. And so we'll do this same line, but now comparing to the previous 24 months. Now, because this if will evaluate before the else if evaluates, if this turns out to be true, it will be called in the current period. Otherwise, it will be called in this period. Otherwise, if neither of those are true, it will return a null value. So this is the flag for current period versus previous period. And we can quickly check if we drag that as a color onto our graph that the current period is in orange, the previous period is in red. And in this case, we actually don't want to see all these nulls. So we're going to drag current or previous period as a filter. We're going to exclude the nulls. And then we need to do something to sort of get this historical data to line up date-wise. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to have to create another calculated field where we clone this previous or current flag. But now we're going to modify the date. So we're going to say aligned synchronized date. And here we're going to say if it's in the current period, then we use its existing timestamp. So month of period end. However, for the previous period that we want to compare against, the 13 through 24 months, in that case, what we need to do is actually do a date addition function. So we do date add, and we want to add using the month intervals, and we want to add 12 months so that something that was, let's say, January 2022 will show up as January 2023. So we're going to add 12 months to the month of period end. Synced date. Okay, so now we're going to take the synced date, and you'll see we now need to update our columns because otherwise this doesn't look right. So we take that out and move synced date over here to columns, and then we say that we want the month and year. And we actually want duplicate. I had changed the name here, so let me just fix that. Okay, great. So we finally have the last 12 months of data as this orange line. Sorry, as this blue line, because it doesn't go all the way up until the most recent period, with the previous period time comparison. So this took us about 8 minutes to set up in Tableau. I'm going to show you a much faster and much more intuitive way to do it using a free-to-try tool called Zing. Zing is a business intelligence platform that's free to get started and makes things like this a lot easier. Let me show you. First, we're going to connect our Excel data source. So we just go to data sources, we hit Excel, read in our Excel file, and then we hit this Start Querying button. This is going to bring us into the Zing app so that we can go start querying it. And remember when we were dealing with Tableau, we had to do all those kind of complicated date calculations. We had to create 2 date calculations. What I'm going to do here, though, is simply go to that source we just created. It's housing data. And I'm going to say that I would like the sum of homes sold. I just drag it to the y-axis, and I get the sum. And I want to see that over time, month of period end. Put that on the x-axis. And then all I have to do that time comparison and get the rolling 12-month period is just drag month of period end to this filter category and say I want to look at the relative past 12 months. And that I want to turn on comparisons. Now, I can choose to compare to the same period last year or to the previous period. I'm going to say the same period last year. And I see an immediate preview. Now, of course, if I wanted to change what the comparison period is, I could do that really easily. So now I've run this question and saved it in less than 2 minutes with Zing. From here, I could save it down to my computer. I could set up alerts when things change. Of course, I could format it I could format it with more detail if I'd like. And of course, I can save this, add it to dashboards, and share it with any of my colleagues. This gives you a sense of how easy Zing makes it to do things like time comparisons that otherwise might take a while in tools like Tableau. You can get started for free at zingdata.com, and you can view tutorials on the Zing YouTube channel that will help you get started. Thanks.